of victory and the agony of defeat.
Great ball around the corner, Petticini. He beats them all. Junior Polar out wide, knocked away from Trindle. Sharks coming through. None of them can hold this.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a live edition of the Tip Sheet Podcast. As always, I'm your host, John, also known as 4020. Joining me is the big fella himself, aka 60s, aka Craig. Here to talk about everything Parramatta Eels and in the wider NRL on Team West Tuesday. Of course, it being a Tuesday evening, 7:30pm, near enough, a little bit late, just a couple of minutes, as we are every week live on YouTube. Here to talk Parramatta and everything else, mate. Before we do talk football, though, and it's a big docket. We got injuries, we got breach notices and suspended suspensions to talk about, drama up in Brisbane. There's a lot happening, but as always, hello to chat, and then how are you doing, mate?
Mate, look, first of all, an apology. I had a bit of advice that was given to me on Facebook about tidying up the left side of my moustache. I haven't got around to it as yet. So to that.
It's funny because I'm the one with the unkempt beard, and you're the one with the trimmed. Nice little.
Yes, mate. In spite of the injuries that our mighty Eels are suffering, I'm trying to keep a brave face. Got to see a bit of training today before heading over to the hospital, and must say in spite of everything that's happened, there was a pretty good vibe in the playing group and the coaching staff, which you always want to see at training. Got a couple more sessions this week to get everything fine-tuned, so looking forward to the rest of the week, John. It feels strange, doesn't it, that the game's at Cumberland Stadium, but it's an away fixture.
It's a weird slate of games because it's the home away from home game, which you always love. They're a real gem in an otherwise pretty unkind schedule as to be a Parramatta Eel. But then there's an 8 o'clock New South Wales Cup game. It's in reverse. So we got some odd things happening this week, and we're going to talk about it at length. Of course, before we do get to that sort of talking of the turkey, quick shout out to the sponsors of the show, Parramatta Leagues Club, home of the Eels. We're there every home game live for a pre-game discussion about our upcoming opponents. Not there this week, of course, because it is a home away from home game. Is an away game on the slate, but we're back the week after. Got that big homestand happening. It's about 4 or 5 games at CommBank in a row. So get out there and support us and support the club. And equally, in terms of support, thank you to Star Partners Real Estate, Auburn, Narellan and Parramatta. Been there since pretty much day dot. And the real OGs, the sponsorship when it comes to TCT. Massive thanks to everyone that's joining us live and watching us in post. And if you can hit that like and subscribe button, you know, the usual YouTube BS goes a long way. Thanks everyone for helping us get to 1,000 subs, and we keep climbing from there, mate. But on that note, is there any more of a preamble that we need to get through?
Look, I just wanted to launch into the schooner of reality, and today I'm going with a Guinness. I'm not sure how I'm going to go with this, John. It's been a while. It's been a while since I've had a schooner of Guinness, and I think the last time I had a schooner of Guinness, there might have been a shot of port that was in it at an Irish pub down around the rocks somewhere. So it was very dim a long time ago. Well, I'll just have a quick sip. Yeah, it is as strong as I remember. I'm going with the
yeah, you're on the meal on a glass, as Pete's saying in our chat. It's the extra protein diet. There we go. Getting the extra carbs.
There we go. Yeah.
All your macros.
Yeah. So the schooner of reality this week, John, goes to the man Peter Volandis himself and the NRL for the set restarts, and I've been banging on. I know the media's banging on about it as well.
There might be a second breach notice coming, mate, if we keep going.
Well, we haven't had a cease and desist as yet. So, but then again, I didn't publish Roly Poly's post, which might have got us a cease and desist if that one had gone out. She really, it was a beautiful read, an absolutely beautiful read. I had to say to her, look, yeah, as magnificent as it is, I'm not game. I'm just not game to put it out there. But what I wanted to talk about with the set restarts, the rugby league eye test again, and this came up in goals preview, and we spoke about it in the pre-game appearance in the Leagues Club on Sunday. But across those first two rounds of the NRL, we had something like 17% of all set restarts led to a try. But the more damning number was that 64% of all tries at that stage were coming from set restarts. Now, if you want to talk about where the game is heading and about being reshaped, you have it there. 64% of all tries up to round two had come from set restarts. It's obvious why, because the amount of fatigue that's being introduced into the game, and Jason Ryles spoke about it on the weekend in relation to the injury that happened to Hopgood, and he's spot on when he said no one intends to make those sorts of tackles. I've never seen a training session where they practice a hip drop.
No one is actively coaching the hip drop. Exactly. It is just when you talk about teams prioritizing post-contact meters, the ability, the need to wrestle or stop the offload. It is literally just a natural mechanism of all these different things combining on top of all the fatigue load that's being introduced into the game as well, Craig. So yeah, no one is actively coaching for a hip drop. No one wants to be hurting players in that capacity. But
this is what's happening, John, is that we're getting these sorts of fatigue-induced errors. These the easy way out with a tackle to just use your body weight to bring the player down because the energy levels are so low. Is it going to take injuries to even higher profile players for something to happen? Because we know there's a whole lot of factors at play here. PVL wants an entertaining game. He said we're in the entertainment business. They're going for a new broadcast contract. So the more tries, the more entertaining. Those sorts of figures, the fact that we've had blowouts, big scores like that, that's not gonna turn PVL and the NRL away from these set restarts and what's happening. But the very fabric of the game of rugby league is disappearing because there were natural stoppages that occurred that allowed the players to get the air back into their lungs, because they're not limitless as to what they can do. And what's happened in recent years is we brought back the number of interchanges. There was a time in the past it was unlimited for a brief period of time. Then it was 12. Now they brought it back down to 8 because they wanted to introduce fatigue into the game. Introduce fatigue into the game. Look at what's happening
This has
now.
always been my bugbear, Craig, is that the administration are chasing fatigue. Why don't we just have them play 80 minutes? That's the big problem, is that the clock runs when the ball is not in play consistently in the NRL. So let's stop the clock when the ball's out of play, make them play 80 minutes, and fatigue is naturally there in every game rather than being a forced mechanic that is a dangerously unhinged forced mechanic.
If you want to see tries scored where you've got one team backpedaling because they're getting set restart after set restart, and one team's just rolling through the middle, put the belt on, throw on a couple of tags, bingo, there's your game. League tag. That's it. Yep. That's because that's what the game is starting to look like at the moment. And that's not what we want. And we don't want injuries that are coming about as a result of fatigue as well. What was wrong with the game last year, John? In all seriousness, what was wrong with the game last year that they had to introduce even more set restarts? I wasn't happy with any set restarts, but I was almost at the point of living with them from the 40-metre line onwards. But now they've got it back to the quarter line. Well, it's on for young and old, and you already are seeing all the articles coming out about the coaches that are exploiting it and how they're giving away, if their line isn't set, they're prepared to give away a set restart, all this sort of stuff. Why? Why are we doing it? So my schooner of reality has to go to PVL, and the NRL, because you had a really good product, and maybe it still is the best product, but it's not as good as it can be because you're making a mess of it. You're reshaping the game to something that it shouldn't be. Stop it. Drop it back to what it should be. I know it's a forlorn hope with the new media deal coming, on the agenda, but man, I'm sure I'm not the only one that feels this way. Anyway, John, hit the stinger.
News team, assemble!
Well, John, in your weekend wrap, you pretty much put it to the readers about this win that the Eels had over the Dragons, that it was a Pyrrhic victory. And for people unfamiliar with that term, it means that the cost of the victory is almost to the extent, or right on the extent, that it was as bad as a loss. And that's what you get when you have injuries. So what's your thoughts further to that, John, about the injuries to Hopgood and Samrani, who now join Will Penasini on the sidelines?
One of the big talking points across the off and pre-season between us fans and general stakeholders of the Eels was concerns about backline depth, wasn't it, Craig? And the club made a move to address that in some capacity with the acquisition of Brian Kelly ahead of Christmas. But there was still the worry that you've made a move and it's helped, but if you get sequential injuries targeting that way, obviously not directly targeting, but happenstance targeting that group, you're going to be very thin very quickly. Lo and behold, I mean, to be fair, it is a couple of really unlucky injuries there. Will with the groin and then Jordan with the meniscus tear, which neither of which you would have been planning for, but it hurts. And now we're at a really awkward position where Brian Kelly's been called upon this week. And after that, you're looking at rookies or throwing Joash out there in sort of a makeshift centre, solution there. And yeah, it does raise. I saw in chat Joel was talking about that. Needing to aggressively target some backline depth. I think it is a very very fair line of thought. As the club maybe need to make a move. We'll talk about that shortly. But yeah, in the short term, I feel terrible for Jordan. He was doing a great job out there in the centres. A young player that's still very much on the rise, and he'll be back this year. His season isn't done. Now, whether he opts for the meniscus trim, which will shorten his recovery time, but then put him at a potential for a reoccurrence or injuries down the road, I don't know. Or if he'll opt for the full-on meniscus repair, that puts him out for longer. But is the better long-term sort of a prognosis on that knee? I don't know. That's for him and the doctor and the club to decide. But it sucks for him. He was poised for a really good year, Craig, and he can still have a good year. Just obviously he's going to be minus 1 to 2 months now, which is really unfortunate. And then for Hopgood, it's a position where we have depth. So in that capacity, I'm not too concerned. Like if you've been cold-hearted, brutally honest about it, like losing Hopgood is not a tragedy, but losing Hopgood is clearly a tragedy. One of our real central figures in the team, part of a leadership group, if I'm not mistaken, Craig, was looked like he was set for a really big game against St. George too. He was ripping in early on, coming off the bench at 1,000,000 miles an hour. And while, you've got guys that replace him, whether it's Guymo or Moretti or DeBellin or Tiankin Brown or any number of those young guys that they may look to slowly start to bring into the setup, it still sucks to see J'maine out for the season. And, all the talk about the hip drop tackle around it is sort of removed from this. It just sucks to see J'maine injured. I was really hopeful for a big year for him. And unfortunately, now he's heading into a contract year next year on the back of a major injury, and he'll have every chance to show his value to both the Eels and the wider NRL next year, but that's not what we want to see. It's just really unfortunate.
Especially on the back of his back injury that he had as well, that kept him out of the game for a while. John, just backtracking on what you were saying about the backs, I agree with Joel. I agree with yourself. We have always been short in this roster when it comes to outside backs because, and this is where the stage that Parramatta's got to. We knew we didn't need any injuries there, but we also knew they were going to come there. It was when you've got a problem area, it seems like the natural laws of the football gods will dictate that will be the specific area where you're going to have some problems with regard to injuries, and that's exactly how it played out. I'm concerned about Jordan because it's a minimum of 6 weeks, and it's really a case of when he goes under the knife, and he went under today, what they find when they open up, with what decisions that they make. I'm hoping that they don't find anything more than a meniscus tear. It's as you and I, we spoke about this, John, and I said that what I really get concerned about is those non-contact knee injuries. Just seeing him step back in field and the knee collapsing underneath him immediately when he did that. And thankfully there was support there straight away that he was able to offload, and we were able to score the try. But as you said, for him, this was personally so disappointing. He has won the respect of so many Eels supporters because something always happens around Jordan. He's able to play back row. He's able to play centre. He can play wing as well. And he's probably not the fastest player in the world, but he's got deceptive pace. And he makes good decisions out on the field for someone who's got so little experience in first grade. And he really is that prototype hybrid edge centre type player that a club likes to have in its roster. It's probably why the Warriors nominated him as a player that they would have taken in any player swap with the Eels, because
for Barnett, back when the Eels put their hat in the ring for that one. Yeah, look, big loss for the squad. It does open up a broader conversation about what the Eels can do in the interim, well, not immediately, but at least in the next few weeks, approaching that mid-season trade deadline. Well, not really a trade, but you know what I mean, the signing deadline. Bronson Xerri's a player that's been thrown around as a candidate for several clubs, but there's also been some concerns about his motivation. I don't know if you saw that, Craig. There's been some talk about his love of the game being called into question. And after us getting burnt with Zach Lomax, I'm not super keen to chase a second backline acquisition that might have motivational issues when it comes to playing the great game of rugby league. But,
well, we might come to that in our NRL news as well, because Jason Ryles had something to say.
Yeah, Jason Ryles did offer his thoughts, or was prompted to offer his thoughts, and gave a little bit of feedback in that. But there's people out there. I mean, Avarillo is a player that we've spoken about at length. I believe he's off contract for next year. Would be a fantastic Sean Russell replacement. And if anything, he's Sean Russell plus in that regard. And that's no slight on Sean Russell, who's a heck of a player himself. But Avarillo's got speed, versatility, and the ability to bust a play open. And the Dolphins have spent lavishly in other positions. So maybe he could be an option. I don't know what you've heard, Craig, if there's anything you can share. But we've got a Raz Namva who features on Team West Tuesday this week. Now, the Eels would need dispensation to select him, if I'm not mistaken. He's not part of either the top or development rosters, but the fact that he's actually in the vicinity of the top 17 or top 19 as it is now would maybe suggest that the Eels at least have preliminary dispensation given to him to maybe name him. I don't know. That's me from the outside looking in. But
I think that was going to be the case with both he and Harper, because a lot of people were keen on both of those players as options. The problem is that you've got the option for Brian Kelly. So the Eels can't say we've got no one experienced in that position. They've got Brian Kelly, and they've also got Jake Tungor, who's got some NRL experience as an outside back as
eligible
well.
roster.
Yeah, so they really would have to present a case about problems around selecting those players, I would guess. But anyway, we're not privy to what approaches are made to the NRL by the Eels. But, John, I wanted to wrap up the game last weekend with a real nod to the Eels and the effort areas that were there. There was stats that were put out by Champion Data with regard to the number of tackles that the teams had in the opposing team's 20. And the Dragons had 100 tackles in the Eels red zone compared to the Eels having 45 tackles in the Dragons red zone. And it was, I think that said a lot about the resilience of our team on Sunday. We know that sustained period of attack that the Dragons had, where it was penalty on penalty, and it was the standing ovation that they received from the crowd when finally the ball was turned back over to us. Under those conditions, and I've spoken to a couple of the players about what it was like out there, and they just said they were gassed. They were just really gassed in that heat, and also with the speed of the game. So they just found a way to get the job done. And whilst there's an element you can put down to St George not taking great options with their finishing, you have to also say that the Eels scrambled particularly well and communicated well to be able to cover being down a man for a significant period of time when they were under the pump on their line, and just being able to come up with some of those big moments in defence. I think it was a game, John, where we won a number of moments, and rugby league does come down to winning a series of moments in a game, and it all adds up to a win. And I think that pretty much was what happened. And I think a big part of it was that resilience on our line, in our red zone. Anything you want to add to the final comments about the win on Sunday?
Yeah, look, defensively, I've got some bones to pick with the team still, particularly the channels around Jonah Pez where we're very fragile. There's obviously some issues that need to be addressed, and that's both a short and long-term issue, and that will come to a head sooner rather than later if the defence does not pick up around Jonah there. But on top of that, obviously the Dragons got a great platform against us early on. They threw a lot of effort into the ruck, and I do think that Jason Ryles is still tinkering with his best or maybe best apparent middle trio to start with, and we haven't gotten that quite right yet. So that is another concern coming out of the game for me. But I do really vibe with what you're saying there, mate. The effort was fantastic. Like, yeah, there's
no question, John, that there's improvement that has to be made. That there are things that in defence that have to be fixed up, and it was a concern, the meters that the Dragons were making through the middle. And I get what you're also saying as well about the tinkering with what the best configuration would be, because we're getting exceptional value from the interchange.
Our bench is dominating, but the inverse is in that our forward starters are not giving us the sort of traction in the middle you want to see right now. And we've had a few different, between injuries, suspension. Unfortunately, both J'maine Hopgood found himself in both columns there. The really tough suspension in round one, and then the injury that happened this week. We've seen some tinkering, and we have another configuration this week with Junior partnering Jack Williams in the front row, and then Dylan Walker starting. And Walker has been so good off the bench. We've spoken at length about his value off the bench, but there is definitely, it's worth seeing what he can do in a starting role now. And look, my only concern there will be, and again, this is sort of preempting teamless discussion, but the Eels have been a little bit too ball play happy through the middle, I think, in their opening quarters in the first 3 rounds. In particular, Junior, who's threatened to do some great stuff and then gotten just lost trying to distribute the ball after making a half break here and there. So I don't know if Walker being on will push the playmaking responsibilities onto him primarily and let Junior focus on just rumbling north-south. But yeah, there are two things there. But again, coming back to what you're saying, the effort and the desperation were top-notch. And yeah, we missed tackles, and you can look at our effective tackle rate not being great, but when any opposition, and you could talk about the issues the Dragons have in their playmaking stocks with Flanagan and Atkinson and some of the, and also Gufferson, being too slow out from the back on those sweeps. But end of the day, when you've got, 15, 20 sets worth of opportunities, like full sets worth of opportunities inside the red zone, you can only come away with including a period where you had the man advantage, and you can only come away with one try off a kick in that second half. You've got to give some credit to the defence there. As much as you can talk about the stilted nature of St. George's attack, the Eels turned up with desperation in numbers consistently. So, yeah, I really like that. And look, that was a continuation of what we saw against Brisbane, where they had a slow start against the Broncos and then just wanted it more when it counted. So we're seeing good signs there. A lot of polish still needs to be applied. We're still trying to work through some issues in terms of our offensive identity. And defensively, obviously, there is some significant things that need to be addressed. But I am, by and large, happy with what we saw in round 3. They showed a lot of ticker. And, yeah, we're going to need a lot more ticker this week against the Panthers. But being 2-1 at this stage of the season is a really important milestone to be at, knowing that, obviously, you want to win against Penrith, Craig, but knowing that the worst you can be is 2-2, taking on the runaway form team of the competition after the first 3 rounds, that's not bad. That's not bad. And that's why those 2 wins in the last 2 weeks have been so important.
Yes. And, John, not going to be able to dedicate the time to go through all the results over the weekend because we did dedicate a bit of time to that in the instant reaction podcast, all the other grades. What I will say is a big congratulations to the club because in the 7 matches over the weekend, the Eels were victorious in 6 of them. The only match that we didn't take was the New South Wales Cup, and there was a significant sin binning that happened early in the game that really gave a bit of momentum to the Dragons, but we also have to acknowledge that the Dragons were far superior in New South Wales Cup there. But the 5, and we'll include Flegg as pathways because they're an age team, but the 5 pathways matches all went to the Eels. The girls' Lisa Fiola Cup remain undefeated, which is a marvellous tick to them. The Tarsha Gale have been on a roll since they lost the opening round. The Harold Mats and SG Ball returned to the winners list this week, and they're well in the hunt for finals football. And the Jersey Flegg, who had a bye last week, made it 2 from 2 when they scored essentially a last-minute win over the Dragons up at Kellyville on Saturday afternoon. So great results across the board. There was only one way of it being any better, and that was the Cup getting a win, but you can't complain about getting 6 wins out of 7 games over the weekend. And hopefully you followed TCT's work on that because we had 5 live blogs over the weekend. I do blow our own trumpet there, John, when I say that there is nowhere else where you get the depth of coverage of the Parramatta Eels as a club as what you get from the Cumberland Throw. And it's something that I'm proud about, that we cover everything from junior reps all the way through to NRL and NRLW. And it was a big weekend for us. And I must say, I was at Kellyville and I just found it great to be out there, to be able to cover 3 grades, and really enjoyed watching them engineer wins across those 3 games. So anyway, without further ado, mate, I'm going to throw it back to you for Team List Tuesday. If you can go through the Eels NRL team, and then we'll look at the lower grades.
Yeah, so Team List Tuesday has brought some forced changes, as we sort of alluded to, on the back of the J'maine Hopgood and Jordan Samrani injuries. And again, Jason Ryles has been pretty straightforward in his changes here, Craig. Nothing too left of field. So at fullback, we have Isaiah Yongi. Bailey Simonson will be on the right wing with the Fox Josh Adokar on the left. Brian Kelly, and will come into the vacant centre position with Sean Russell. Kelly is a left edge preferred centre, Craig, so I'm not sure if we'll see some swapsies, daisies around there, but we'll have to wait and see. But Russell's got the versatility to cover either side of the field if need be. Jonah Pez.
Let me just say, yeah, Sean Russell's Mr. Fix-It.
Yes, so yeah, exactly. So if the Eels do want to explore Kelly playing his preferred edge, then there is the option there for sure. Jonah Peasant partners Mitchell Moses in the halves. Obviously, Mitch is our captain. I mentioned it before, but Jack Williams will be in the front row with Junior Barlaw. Riley Smith is a dummy half. The Ks, the special Ks, I suppose you can call them, Craig. Kelma Tuolangi and Kitiana Katonga are on the edges. Dylan Walker will start at lock forward. Six
Think
man.
that'll catch on, John?
The special Ks.
Special K?
Well, we already got it in tennis.
Gideon gets Kit Kat.
Yeah, the Kit Kat and Kelman there. But we got the, what was it, Kyrgios and Thanasi Kokkinakis in tennis. So we can pinch that one from those boys. They're a bit too injured to be wearing that title anyway. They're always out, it feels like. So we'll take the special Ks from them. But then on the six-man interchange, it's Talon de Silva in the 14 this week. He's been in the 17 more presently, but he gets the 14 because of Walker's promotion. Sam Tuivasa, that's my big fella right there, in the 15. Matt Dury, Luca Moretti, Chowie Gaima, and Joash Papali round out Ryles' six-man, the optional six-man bench there, isn't it? Jack DeBellin, Tiankan Brown, and Araz Namva, the three shadow players there, 20, 21, and 22, respectively. So, yeah, look, two forced changes there. Luca Moretti seemingly getting the nod there, but Chowie Gaima is obviously an option there for Ryles too, Craig. And with the New South Wales Cup playing late in the wake of this game, and Chris was in chat giving us the tip that it's because of the really awful scheduling between the junior reps and the senior football this week that's caused this weird scheduling clash. I would dare say that two of Luca Moretti, Chowie Gaima, and Josh Papali probably turn out in New South Wales Cup after this game.
Yes, it's. I tried to get. I tried to get a bit of a feedback from Will Penasini today about whether he's ahead of schedule, or whether it's just going to be sticking to the original plan. And unfortunately, I had some journalists around me, and he goes, "Oh, that's a secret." So there's nothing given away there, John. I think it's the team we expected when all was said and done. Maybe he could have, if he wanted to get Josh to the team, he could have played centre. Josh did that job, funnily enough, replacing Will last year, where he rotated between centre and wing when Will was rubbed out of it with a concussion very early, I think it was in the second minute of the game. And he did a good job, but there is a difference between being a surprise sort of game day throw in there and teams don't get a chance to prep, and then obviously being named on Team West Tuesday. And look, Kelly was brought in for this explicit role, Craig, and we knew coming to Parramatta he was a flawed but not bad prospect. He's a guy that gives you good offense, but at the cost of some inconsistent defense. And that's going to be the challenge for the Eels this week. Is he's going to be spotted up, whether it's Alamotti or McLean. You got a bit of thunder and lightning there. Alamotti will bring the ability to beat you with power, and McLean's the shifty speedster. So whichever edge he ends up on, it's going to be a tough assignment. But you just got to trust that the Eels can get it right, and that they can get their systems in place, and that whether it's Kelly or whether it's Pez or whether it's anyone, no one's had a flawless defensive start to the season for the Eels. They just need to work together collectively and individually against the Panthers and be better. So that's the challenge. Yeah, and I think also it's a matter of coaches want to go for as minimal disruptions as possible. It's so if you've had combinations that are still available that have trained together during the pre-season, you're going to go with them. And let's face it, the start of the year, we had Brian Kelly selected in the centres as an option. And he was put back to New South Wales Cup after that first round, played 1 week, which was last week in New South Wales Cup, because the second round it was a bye. But he's done all of his prep as part of the first grade team. So it's not like he gets thrown in there this week and he's got a week to get up to speed.
No, exactly. And, yeah, just the defensive issues, they're something they're going to have to work out on a week-by-week basis. And part of me hopes that this is a bit of a lightning rod game, Craig, where the Eels, I know they've played Melbourne and they've played Brisbane, who are both obviously big-time contenders. One is literally the reigning premier, the other is the grand finals from last year. But there's something about Penrith, isn't there? Like, just when it comes to Parramatta and Penrith in recent years, whether it's been Brad Arthur or Jason Ryles, it has been the lightning rod game. It has been the game where no matter how injured, how down the dumps the Eels have been, they've found a way to turn around and punch Penrith in the mouth. And more often than not, beat Penrith in a time where they've been almost unbeatable. So I am hoping that this game can be a real catalyst for the Parramatta Eels, both offensively and defensively, and that they can get up for this one. And maybe they don't win, but maybe they can just give them a real good battle for their money.
I think what we just want to be able to see, John, is that we get our team to trust their processes. It's the old rugby league saying, but trust the processes that the coaches have in place. And I think one of the most basic things that we need to do, and I don't want to go too much into this because we've got our preview podcast where we can. This isn't a match preview podcast, but it's the most obvious thing, which is if you give Penrith possession in your own end of the field, you're in trouble. So I think first and foremost,
yeah. That's what Brisbane did, and it led to a 26-0 shutout in round one. So yeah, there's definitely some tape on that one. Second game in a row, Jack de Bellin's been overlooked for a position in the top 19. Craig, what do you read into that?
I reckon Jack, because we didn't get a chance to see the New South Wales Cup because of our commitments over at Parramatta Leagues Club, and I haven't had a chance to catch up on a replay of that match as yet. The reports that I had was it was a pretty ordinary performance from him in New South Wales Cup as well. And just seeing how he prepared in the preseason and then seeing what's happening now, I think he's complicating his game. I think he's trying too hard. I think the best thing that he can do right he is what happened with Hopgood last year. Because if you remember, Hopgood was looking really ordinary, and was a lot of mistakes were happening around him in the early part of the season. He stripped that back, and what do you know? When that first instinct was tuck the ball under the arm and run, all of a sudden the consistency of performance completely changed. And I think that would be what I'd be recommending for Jack de Belin. Not that the coaches are watching this podcast and taking notes about what a couple of old timers. Well, I can't call you an old timer there, John, even though I'm working on it. I'm working on it, mate. Yeah. You're working on it, yeah. But that to me is what's happening. I just think he's trying too hard. I think he's trying to make an impact where really what he has to do is he just has to be Jack de Belin. It's as simple as that. He doesn't have to be the magic man in the Parramatta pack. He just has to do the things that he does. And let's simplify it by getting the run meters up first and foremost, and then seeing what can evolve from there.
Yep.
So that's my take on it. And I guess it also proves that Rylesy and the coaches, a name doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything.
It is a reinforcement that Jason Ryles is nothing if not pragmatic. He will go out there and he'll give you a chance, but if you don't give back on the opportunity, then he will replace you. And look, de Belin, he wasn't terrible. I know people being caught up in he was awful, terrible. He wasn't terrible, but he wasn't great. And now we're seeing the likes of Moretti and Guymer get their chances, doubly so with the Hopgood injury. So. Yeah, it's now in de Belin. Obviously, it's firstly in Moretti and Guymer's court to show that they now belong in first grade, but also on Jack de Belin to challenge them. And we've already seen injuries play a part in Parramatta negatively. There will be more suspensions. There will be more injuries. De Belin's experience will come in value and of use for the Eels at some point in the near future. So hopefully he can just get his footing underneath him back in Cup, Craig. And like you said, streamline, strip back his game and just get back to dominating the collisions. Again, a rugby league truism there for a reason, but just win the ruck. Focus on his ability to win the ruck, both defensively and offensively. Dominant tackles, strong carries, and then he'll be back featuring in first grade at some point.
Can you take us through the lower grade teams, please?
Yeah, we got some changes. Of course, with the inclusion of Brian Kelly at the very least, there's going to be at least one change in the New South Wales Cup, but they do get a big inclusion too. After a few weeks of how to recognise halfback, Ronald Volkman is back in the fold, Craig, returning from a quadricep strain, taking his place at number 7. But at fullback, you've got Arpa Twiddle, Jake Tungor and Moe Alamadina on the wings. Samuel Luizu comes into the starting centres, opposite of Araz Nanva. Lorenzo Talatano or partner Volkman, which is the halves pairing that got them to the grand final qualifier last year. With the players pulled onto the NRL six-man bench, with Tony Matteelli gets a start in the front row, with Tiankan Brown, his running mate there. Cruz Natalie Schmidt tags in for Manny Luke as the starting dummy half. Manny goes back to the bench. You got Will Latu and Josiah Funayuta on the edges. Jack DeBellon captains the team from lock forward. I mentioned Manny's on the bench, but he's joined by Saxon Pryke, Tyrese Lakini, who had a good game in the flag, Craig, and then also Max Tupou. It's a good sighting for Max Tupou there. He's been obviously out of the team recently, but he comes back onto the bench here. And yeah, that's the Eels playing at 8 o'clock p.m. at CommBank Stadium there. So they've got a couple of changes. Still a reasonable looking outfit, Craig, but they need to be vastly better on what they showed against the Dragons. And the Dragons were a decent team, but the Eels, they played poorly. So two things can be true, can't they? The Dragons deserve the win, they play better, but the Eels were also very, very ordinary.
Yeah, and we can see the players that have come through the club system that have been retained by the club outside the full-time squad, blokes like Samuel Luizio and
Max Tupou, Arthur Miller
and
Stevens.
Max Tupou. Saw Artie scored a couple of tries, I think, last week in the Ron Massey Cup.
RMC,
So they're still around, and who knows where that may lead them, because we've had in the past where Jake Tungor and now I always get the other bloke confused with his Cronulla brother. So
Mulatalo?
Yes.
Lorenzo and Ronaldo, fraternal twins.
Yes, that was Lorenzo that was with us, right? So Lorenzo and Jake, they started the year in Ron Massey Cup and ended up making NRL debuts. So anything can happen. You don't want those sorts of scenarios to happen, and that's not casting aspersions on players or what have you, but it's just indicative of how many injuries you might get in specific positions. So we don't want to have too many of those sorts of scenarios. We'd rather it be a case that one of those players, if they did end up in first grade, that it was simply that their form was that strong that they made it a case that coach couldn't ignore them. John, if you can run us through has the flag team been named?
We do have a flag team, yes. They took a little bit to get out there, but it has been dropped. Not too dissimilar to what we saw last week, but there are some changes. Corey Lee at fullback, Jesua Mar Nelson and Druzel Talo, our try scorers, are on the wings. Druzel had actually a great game, Craig, with a critical try saver, as much as the two tries he scored, including the match winner. Siamani Lealua and Devonta Vivella in the centres. Awani Louis, who threw the game-winning pass to Towler, and is at 5'8". Kay Mujali will be his running mate in the halves. Bo Lucian will move into he was starting front row last week, but he moves into the number 8 position with the number 10 on his back because Jordan Miller's getting promoted into the starting team after a couple of good games. Big Geordie's got the 19 on his back. Lachlan Koinakis is the starting dummy half. Trace Beattie and Noah Parker on the edges. Callum McMenemy is the starting lock forward. Jack Hudson, the dummy half utility, on the interchange, joined by Marcus Offanua, Zach Visconti, and Javan Stevenson-Hala. Harley Walker, the concussion substitute / 18th man. And they are playing at St. Mary's, 4:45 p.m. on Saturday. So it is a congested play window. We've got Harold Matts and SG Ball playing at the same time there. We've got Jersey Flegg, got the NRL at 5:30. You've got the New South Wales Cup at 8 o'clock. Good Lord, it is a mess this week.
Let's just say we won't be able to do what we did last week with this, because it is one awful mess, because I think the junior reps are at home too, aren't they, with that congestion?
That is a good call.
I think they're at Granville. At least
Eric Tweedo, Granville,
yeah. So we've got the SG Ball, like the Mats, I think, are on at 2. Girls are on in the morning. The Mats are on, I think, at 2. SG Ball
10:30, 12, 2, and 4. Yeah, I believe is the split of
4.
The reps.
And then we've got the flag on it. What did you say it was? 4:30. We've got the NRL on it at
5:30.
5:30. Sorry,
NRL's 5:30. So you get that into the New South Wales Cup at 8 o'clock. It is a schmozzle.
So but you'll have to bear with us on that. That we'll just do our best with what we can with the pathways as always. But I know I'm going to be out at Combank Stadium on Saturday for the NRL. We'll have to make a decision about the New South Wales Cup or the instant reaction with that, John. So it's probably would be very, very late at night if I went to the New South Wales Cup and went for the instant reaction straight after New South Wales Cup. The instant reaction would be at 10 o'clock. So, it's a tough weekend for trying to cover it. John, just speaking of the weekend, first of all, I wanted to do a shout out to the Eels March because they got over 1,000 people, I believe, that joined the march down to the stadium. So congratulations to everyone involved in that.
Good bit of pageantry there for the fans. Yeah.
Yep. I also wanted to give the tick of approval for the match day presentation. I thought it was as good as it's been, probably better than it's ever been in terms of getting the fan engagement happening, those that are attending. The only tweak they need to make is to make sure that they get the Eels team song played at the end. It was, I believe it was meant to be played. There was a little bit of a glitch, but the message that I want to send to the club, and I've already sent this, but I'm going to send it on the podcast, is it has to be the old song. It has to be the Click Go the Eels, because as much as I love John English and the other song, it's not one that fans can sing along with at the end of a game. Maybe people in chat can give a quick opinion on that as well about which song they would like to hear. We'll probably do a survey on our socials as well. But do you want the John English Eels song, or do you want the traditional Eels song to the tune of Click Go the Shears? The one that you can sing along with. I know it's an older one, but I guess it's your choice about whether you want to sing along or clap along with the team song. We were waiting for the song to come on after full time, and it just didn't happen. And everyone's sort of like, "Oh, well, that's disappointing. We didn't get to have a bit of a sing song after the game." But it was the only glitch in a what I thought was a great presentation. And a shout out to Big Al Latu, who was the MC for the day. He's a professional MC. He does a number of sports. Travels from Melbourne. He's I think that's where he's based. And he does the Union. I think he does basketball, where he's like, have microphone, will travel. And he's pretty well versed in crowd engagement. And he tried a couple of things which worked, where he just went, like, for example, when I say Parra, you say Eels. And he got the crowd responding to that, just simple things like that. Please, the only message I will say, again, is do not play the recorded chant.
No canned chants.
We don't need it.
You literally have the Swarm there, the active supporting bay, to lead the parachant when needed, to spark that. And organic parachants are so much more powerful than the canned ones. So yeah, I think letting the crowd read into the flow of the game is always better in that regard. But yeah, good to hear that the game day setup was much better this year. Although no Click Goes Eels has been a bit of a controversial topic, and in chat I'm seeing support for both Johnny English, obviously the musician who's no longer with us, not the Rowan Atkinson character, as well as Click Go the Eels. I think Click Go the Eels slightly in front there, although there's been calls for both too. I don't know how you'd queue that up in terms of, you could just do one after the other, I guess. But looks like
they used to start the game with the John English one. Before, but of course now they use
Metallica.
Yeah, but it used to be Enter the Field on John English for definitely, and you could go about it that way. You could have it on alternate weeks, but I honestly think that the club has indicated that they get a little bit more in the way of people after the John English version, but I don't know whether they're necessarily people that are at the game or not. I don't know. So, John, on Sunday at the club, we had a little game of 6 again and play on. And we've got probably a number of people here who in chat or watching this who weren't there. So I'm going to throw it to some of the same examples to chat and to get them to give their answer to the game scenario that I'm going to give you. So I'm going to read out a game scenario. You have to write down what the referee is likely to do. Call 6 again or play on. Now remember what the referee is likely to do, not what he should do or she, not what they should do, what they would do. So here's the first one. The Eels are on a roll and Dylan Walker is getting ready for a quick play of the ball, but he gets pulled back onto his back. 6 again or play on.
Chris is early. He says 6 again. He's an optimistic eel right there. And any other quick replies? 6 again and again and again, Chris. Which team? Against which team? That is an important question, Jamie. That is an important question.
Well, that actually happened against the Broncos, didn't it? And it was play on was the call from the referee.
Symbian. Oh, God.
Para are back up to 12 metres. The defence line looks good. 6 again or play on.
We got some late play-ons coming in for the last one there. Any early pundits on whether it's a 6 again or a play-on with the set Parramatta defensive line?
And it's back 12 metres, not 10.
Back 12 metres.
Yep, you're right. Anyone that said 6 again against Parramatta, you're right. Okay. The play the ball speed for the opposition is around 3 seconds with the Eels rolling off the tackle player. 6 again or play on? You know the answer, John.
Yes.
Tell them.
Yes, it's a 6 again against Parramatta.
Riley Smith darts out a dummy half and catches the markers offside. 6 again or play on?
I'm pretty certain I saw this one play out on Sunday as well. So
yeah, the exact scenario played out, so you know what happened.
So that was a bit of a Nostradamus for you there too, because this was in the pre-game that you did that. It came true. Yes. Play on, as Jamie said. Play on, onside.
Yeah. Here we go. Isaiah Iongi gets hit across the head in a kick return. 6 again or play on? Be careful, this is the trick question.
Bearing in mind, there's already been a precedent established in the context of the game for this one, that a player got put in the bin for very similar actions. Joel
and yes, it was a trick question. Nothing happens except Iongi has to go for a HIA.
Yep. Yes, that is.
Okay, that brings the 6 again or play on to a close. John, over to you for the musical interlude.
Yeah, look, always hunting for fun little narratives to spin off into for the interlude. And my one this week, look, I'm not going to say it's political. It's more just, geo news centric, because the only people that might be able to afford running a car in the next couple of weeks are F1 teams. So on that note, I've gone for the fantastic F1 Fiend. And it's funny because I actually use hybrid electric motors these days, but and I believe an ethanol-derived fuel source too. But the way petrol prices are, mate, Jesus, you might need to take out a second mortgage just to fill up your car. So on that note, here's the F1 Fiend, and good luck to anyone that can afford a tank of petrol in the coming weeks. Make sure I don't blow out everyone's eardrums. Been a terrible start for Oscar Piastri, by the way, Craig. I don't know if you follow the F1, but he's had 2 did not starts in the first 2 rounds of the Grand Prix, so it's been brutal.
Maybe it might be time for a Cumberland throw version of there's like the 360 program for the motor racing on Fox Sports now. So I'm sure there's a follower out there of the motor racing. John will join you for a motor racing podcast. But it is appropriate that you played that, because today, with still over half a tank of petrol left in the car, I thought, well, I'll go and fill up, because my usual methodology is I let there's 2 cars that are run, both old cars, and I let the petrol tank get down to the smell of petrol before I start thinking about filling up. And with how things are now, as soon as I get to half a tank, I'm filling up. So I go to fill up today, and it cost $70 for half a tank. And I thought, this is now getting to ridiculous proportions, because it's not like I do a hell of a lot of running around in any week. I mean, I do a lot of running around, but it's a lot of short trips that I have to do. And now when they're starting to talk about what might be happening in the way of petrol, I'm forced to think back to about 40, I reckon, John, it's about 46 years ago, something like that, 46, 47 years ago, when there was petrol rationing. And I don't think you've ever lived through petrol rationing, John, but you had a limit that you could buy. And so people would queue up at petrol stations, like right up the street, and they'd have, of course, the Bowsers were manned by staff, and you could get, because this is going back a long time ago, obviously, say $10 of petrol might be your limit that you could get. And then if you were lucky, you might have to go and find another one. But it would, they did things like, I think it was the whether you were odds or evens in the number on the rego plate. So they were some strange times back then. Thankfully, there used to be, where I live, there, it's no longer there, but there was a service station at the end of the road, and it's a quiet one most times. Like, it would hardly ever have anyone there because it was tucked away in Winston Hills. So who's going to go to a petrol station in Winston Hills other than someone maybe getting their car fixed because it had a garage attached to it? But I had a mate that was working in there, and one of the advantages of that was you'd get up there, and he's just one of the ones pumping the petrol, and there's no cards being used. Everything's cash. Money would just go in his pocket, and it would just be flip the thing on the petrol pump and pump it, and I'd just give him a second $10 bill, and he'd flip it, put in the second $20. So it was
the gratuity. Yeah. Yeah. And I was just saying in chat, on the topic of the old petrol mathematics, I don't know if you've seen it, Craig, because you're probably not a big NBA guy, but there's a excellent NBA talk show, the TNT crew, which is Ernie Johnson, Shaquille O'Neal, Chuck or Charles Barkley, and Kenny as well, Kenny Smith. And they get into it over the most random stuff. And one of their most legendary moments, among a lot of legendary moments they had, was Shaquille O'Neal explaining his gas maths and how he never runs out of petrol. I don't want to try and explain it because it's so funny, but he's got some broken mathematics when it comes to how he operates his cars in regards to filling up at half tanks and whatnot. But it's very funny. Go Google that if you want to get a funny little clip to sort of take your mind off some of the other issues that are surrounding petrol right now. And like I said, there is obviously a political backdrop to this that we're not going to get into. But God, I just hope the petrol prices normalise, because it is getting out of hand. And unfortunately, when the ultra rich and whatnot play their games, it's the average Joes that end up suffering, and that seems to be the case here too.
Yeah, unfortunately, John. But let's get back into the football, and for the soap opera, the drama that is rugby league, that is the NRL, and it's all focusing on Brisbane at the moment, with Ben Teo walking out on the club, the assistant coach, the defence coach, having a set to with Madge Maguire and saying, that will do me.
We got
your take on this?
Important breaking problem to solve here. We can't solve the gas crisis, Craig, but Ben from the Electric Podcast is in chat saying he's tuning in from downtown Port Macquarie. Firstly, great spot, mid-off coast, fantastic part of the region. You guys know that I grew up in Coffs Harbour, and that's not, I say it's not too far. It is 2 hours away from Port Macquarie, but that's how you used to travel for your weekend sports. You go to Dorrigo, Port Macquarie, Grafton. God bless my mum for all the trips she did in terms of that for football. But Ben's saying that he's waiting for his dinner at Pizza Obsession. Any chance of a shout out so I can get a free garlic bread? Of course we can give you a shout out. Pizza Obsession in Port Macquarie, probably the best pizza on the mid-off coast, I'm sure, Craig. If that's going to get our boy Ben a free garlic bread, then surely we can give him a bit of a shout out there.
What was the name of that pizza shop?
Pizza Obsession. And why wouldn't you be obsessed about pizza? Great food. It's pretty much every dietary macro you need on the one place. Now, don't mind the actual energy intake on it because it's it's heavy. But look, I'm a good Italian boy. I love my pizza. So if that gets Ben his garlic bread, which is also a fantastic side, by the way, then surely we can give the shout out there.
And what Pizza Obsession needs to understand is that Ben is he's a real connoisseur of pizzas. So if he's gone into Pizza Obsession, that's the name of the place, isn't it, John? Pizza Obsession?
Pizza Obsession
at
Port Macquarie. Yes, sir.
So if he's gone into Pizza Obsession at Port Macquarie to get his pizza,
it's the highest possible endorsement you can give to a franchise, exactly.
It logically follows that it has his endorsement, that he's been there before, that he gives it the tick of approval. And if Pizza Obsession at Port Macquarie is interested in sponsoring a rugby league podcast, Eels,
don't start.
Get back, just rewind and show them the podcast. So there you go.
Jed is in chat trying to stir some trouble. Does pineapple belong on a pizza? I will say traditionally no, but pizzas they are a canvas, aren't they, Craig? And if you want pineapple on your pizza, I think that's more power to you. So the boys from Pizza Obsession are enjoying it. I'm glad. And hopefully you have a great feed there, mate. Good to have you in the chat. Ben.
What's the name of that place again?
Pizza Obsession.
And where is it?
In Port Macquarie. So if you're heading into the mid-off coast,
all the locals, all the holiday makers, they know all about it. And a lot more people now are going to stop in.
Well, that's the thing. If you're now an interstate traveller, or you're heading up to a game in Brisbane or the Gold Coast for the Parramatta Eels, you're driving along and you happen to stop in Port Macquarie, which is one of the good stops between there and the border, alongside Coffs Harbour, and before that, Bull Dealers there as well too. But now you're going to be stopping at Port Macquarie, get a slice of pizza, or get a nice large pizza from Pizza Obsession. So, who says we can't do sponsorship on the fly there? But yeah, Craig, what the hell is going on at Brisbane? What is going on? We've talked about the Madge effect in the past and how year two can see the tolerance sort of wear thin. At least that's what we've seen in his time, particularly at South Sydney, but to a lesser extent at the West Tigers, where things were a little different. But now he's won the premiership. He's crested the summit. He's taken the Broncos to their first title in 20 years. Like, an incredible achievement. But immediately in the wake of that, rumours started swirling about players not being happy. You get Payne Haas leaving the club with no note out of left field to join South Sydney for what is purported to be a deal of similar value, which is not how it works. Like, if that's true, then his value's meant to go up. You've had this long-running feud, and look, Gordy's got his part to play with it. Don't get me wrong. I enjoy Gordon Tallis because he calls it as he sees it, and as he sees it isn't always the right way, but he seems pretty salt of the earth. But there's been a long-running feud between him and the Broncos now for a long time. It's culminated recently in one of the meeting rooms being changed from the Gordon Tallis meeting room to the Ali Brigginshaw, I believe, meeting room. So you're denigrating one legend to raise up another legend. That always causes complications. And now Ben Teo. There was reports of a big blow-up between him and Madge at training. People were saying that it was nothing. And then hours later, he's left the club. So clearly there was something there. Has there been a more dysfunctional premiership winner in recent years than the Brisbane Broncos? Like, each of those things in isolation, except maybe the Ben Teo thing, because that's clearly pretty serious, you'd say, you know what, it's rumours. You can say where there's smoke, there's fire, but nothing really major's happened. But now an assistant coach has walked out less than a month into the season. So, I don't know. It is very, very odd. And they are an incredibly talented team. But are we really... is this history repeating itself? Is this the Madge effect in full power? Has he really worn thin that hard on the player base? I don't know. Like, how would you explain it? Because there is so much smoke.
All I will say is I had people with connections to players message me throughout the pre-season with the rumours about what was going on with the Broncos, about disharmony between the players and the coach. And it was both nothing specific and nothing over the top, if that makes sense. It was just like, all's not well up there. There's a lot of disharmony. He's worn thin on the players. It hadn't changed since last year. And I said to you last year, and I've repeated it a number of times, they won that premiership on the back of Reece Walsh. He had a run of form that was Hayne-like. And the difference being that he got them across the line in the grand final. If he wasn't in that team, they don't even make finals football. That's how close the finals were for the teams that were in the running for the finals. As it was, they scraped into the top four, and then they had 3 matches in a row where they were dead to rights and somehow scrambled from what seemed like the highest possible mountain that they had to climb to get back into games. And somehow they did it and won each of them. And it just so happened that Reece Walsh played a significant role in each of those. So maybe if all the rumours are true, you'd end up saying that they won the premiership in spite of the coach. That'd be what you'd say. But it's a harsh judgment on someone like Madge when he's now won 2 premierships with different clubs.
But there is also such similarities, some striking similarities between the times there. And look, we've equated him to being like the anti, but also similar to Brian Smith, coach of his era, whereas Brian Smith was the guy you brought in for a few years for the incredible rebuild. Madge is the antithesis, where he's another short-term coach you bring in to get over the hump. And he's proven that twice now, as well as his time in the Super League where he was incredibly successful. But this is twice now with a top roster. He's crested the summit and then immediately had incredible fallout from multiple angles. And I know that there are a lot of Broncos fans talking about how it's a media beat-up. And look, part of it absolutely is, like the media magnifying it and making more of a story of it. We as Parramatta fans are very used to mountains being made out of molehills or even, foothills. Sometimes there is a semi-serious issue that does get a bit of extra exposure than it should. But for Madge, this is twice now. And it is, first time, okay, it's a coincidence. Second time, I think that you're starting to really start to see this is a pattern. And it is crazy that they got to the summit and now are destroying themselves, or at least seem to be destroying themselves. Their best players leaving the club. Their a rising assistant coach has walked out. And I saw in chat, maybe it was Jamie saying that Tio's got a bit of a history as a hothead. I agree. Ben Tio is was a fiery, passionate player, and maybe that's translated into whatever conflict's taken place here. But there's just so many things happening here that you can't just dismiss this as media hubbub and shit stirring. There is clearly some issues.
John, is my memory correct? I'm sure it was Ben Tio that had a run-in with Danny Weidler.
Yes, it was. It was Ben.
House training.
Caught him a germ or a grub.
Watching a car crash, wasn't it?
Yeah. He caught him something along the lines of a germ and a grub, and the game would be better off without him, I think. So, Ben is not backwards and being forwards about his feelings sometimes, but he's also a very well-travelled player and coach now. Spent time in the 15-man code as well. Has done coaching in a few different stops, and will certainly seem to be billed as a rising coaching candidate, not necessarily a head coach of the immediate future, but one down the road. But it's there is some weird stuff happening. I mean, you used to say Redcliffe, I suppose, because they were part of that there, but at the Broncos now. So I don't know. Look, we're not ones to throw glasses in stone houses because Parramatta have been there, done that with some of the drama we've had. But it stands out because A, Michael Maguire now, it's the second time it's happened to him in his career, and B, just the Broncos being premiers and then seemingly falling apart. Slow start to the season. Obviously, they beat the Melbourne Storm most recently, so they've gotten on the board. But they had ugly loss to Penrith. They would have been frustrated losing to us in the manner in which it happened to, being up 20-6. They managed to bounce back against Melbourne, but there is stuff burning away under the surface there at the Broncos.
And now Payne Haas is out for.
And I think not only has he left the club, he's got a shoulder injury right now, so he's out. So yeah, look, Pat Carrigan's looked to be in pretty good form, so I think they'll pick up some of the slack there. I've got a big rap on Xavier Willison, Craig. He's a good young forward as well. So, look, they can replicate some of Payne Haas in the aggregate, but the reality is it's Payne Haas. It's Payne freaking Haas. The best middle forward in the game. And if anything, I think that Payne Haas has very clearly separated himself from Tino Fasu or Mala Awi in recent seasons. I think Tino's hit a wall, and Payne Haas hasn't. Payne Haas just keeps going on and on and on and on. He's an absolute beast. And if anything, Tino's been a bit of a disappointment to start this year.
Now, I'll keep with the theme of disappointment, and we'll go to Jake Trbojevic, which is you can feel that this is going to be an uncomfortable ride for Manly during this period, because Jake's forms come under the microscope. His age, the influence that he has at the club, Manly's form, all of this going together. The fact he's off contract, will he trigger an extension so that he stays at the club? My thought on that is he's smart enough. He's a smart enough operator that he'll walk away this year and he'll have another role at the club, so that in terms of having an income, that he'll be looked after in that regard. But
Jake will get,
John,
if he wants media gigs, if he wants coaching gigs, there'll be opportunities afforded to him, and not nepotistically. He will warrant it. He's been a leader for Manly for a long time, so he's got the chops to handle responsibilities beyond just being a player. But this is a pretty ugly conversation, isn't it, Craig? Like his form, we've been able to separate our criticism of Jake the person from Jake the footballer for a while, right? We've been pretty critical of his selection for the Blues, being pretty on the nose about some of his former clubland too. But yeah, it's tough, mate. He is a club legend for Manly. The Trbojevic has been a real pillar. Obviously, primarily Jake and Tom. Ben is actually coming to his own as a pretty handy first grader now, but he's far away from where his two brothers sit in terms of accolades and achievements. And it's always tough when you see a great club player slow down and the game pass them by. And part of this has been the significant shift in the metagame. Jake was a player built for the penalty era of the NRL. His ability to play tough and rugged through the middle and do a bit of ball playing at a slower pace was much better equipped for the pre-PVL era of rugby league. And unfortunately, he is one of those players between the concussions and the game changes and just the wear and tear in his body, not too dissimilar to what we saw from players like Nathan Hindmarsh in the past, where they had to go through a transition in play style, and Hindy handled it better than Jake has, becoming more of a tackle machine, a ruck, simple ruck man, as opposed to being the barnstorming back row that Hindy was for the first half of his playing arc. Jake hasn't made that transition, and the game's gotten faster, and the game's gotten away from his ability to make a good conventional tackle and maybe do a bit of ball playing to a point where he's a genuine liability every week, and he's running for 40 metres a game, making some tackles but also missing tackles and having no impact. So, yeah, this is an ugly conversation for Manly. You hate to see it in a neutral. Obviously, it's Manly, so we don't really give a shit in that regard. Like, if you're a biased Parramatta fan, you don't care. But if you're taking off the blue and gold goggles and you're talking about this seriously in a rugby league context, then, yeah, you do hate to see this. You hate to see a genuine rugby club guy be run out of the game like this, but the game has gone past him. And now there's concussions in the mix, and he's wearing the bubble headgear that it's a goofy look. And it's not about the aesthetics. I also don't really think headgears do much for concussions. I've been privy to a couple of concussion seminars with some of the work I do with the BGA, and it's just literally transitive force going through. The headgears do very little to mitigate concussive force. No. Yeah. And yeah, it is an ugly conversation, mate, and it's going to come to a head very quickly because Anthony Seibold's on a hot seat. Jake Trbojevic is on the cusp of being, thrown out by, or at least by the fan base, are getting really riled up about it. Tom's holding the club, not hostage, but he's got a very heavy wage for a guy that's not playing a lot of football. There are some very big decisions that have to be made at Manly. And again, we talked about Jason Ryles' pragmatism. I think Manly have been the opposite. And again, you don't get in the way of an opponent doing something stupid. Like, this is, again, not just me as a Parramatta fan, but you never get in the way of an opponent doing something silly that's going to be to their own detriment. But Manly really need to have a step back and look at the big picture here, because they've got to make some tough calls, and Jake is one of the primary ones there.
and you don't want to see, no matter who the club is, but someone who's given great service to the club ending up on the outer with their fans, where the fans start calling them out and having shots at them, and
there's shots on social media,
that sort of stuff.
and you start seeing petitions and banners go up. And for someone like Jake, who's literally given everything to the Seagulls, it'd be a shit way to finish a great career for them. And that's why you hear sayings like it's better to go a year late than a year later in that regard. And I think that might be true here. And we have to wait and see, because I am certain there's going to be some action on the coach. And people can talk about how Penn is going to be stingy about paying out a coach and having another coach on the books. And that's what's held off the change on Seabold. Surely Seabold gives way. He is just not the right guy for them. And I don't know who replaces him. There's going to be some interesting, the musical chairs of coaching going on at the end of this year. If we see a couple of changes there, but the Manly are really, they're careening towards a series of catastrophic decisions they have to make, whether it's coaching, playing, and roster in general.
But you know what? They had the chance to make decisions about it last year. They didn't. They've made their bed. They're going to have to lie in it. Unfortunately, that's where they're at. Again, on the trouble side of rugby league, Bronson Xerri named in New South Wales Cup for this week, and not a surprise, but maybe it was a little bit of a surprise to some Eels supporters that when Jason Ryles was pushed for an opinion on Bronson Xerri, that he just pretty quickly brushed it and said not interested.
And that is significant, because he did flag interest in Mitchell Barnett. He did say that the Eels would be interested in Mitchell Barnett, I believe. So maybe he's playing Ducks and Drakes, but we talked about it at the top of the podcast, Craig, that there's been a few reports about concerns within Canterbury about Xerri's motivations to play the game and whether he's keen to be a footballer long term. And if there is, and the Eels will need to do their due diligence here, if there is any substance to that, then count me out. After what we went through with Zach Lomax, I don't need a second marquee backline player with motivational questions when it comes to playing our great game. I want someone that's fully committed to winning the premiership Parramatta, and if that means getting a slightly lesser player, then so be it. But in saying a slightly lesser player, I think Bronson Xerri is a good centre, but not a great centre. And I'm fine for a good centre for the right rate on the cap, don't get me wrong. But if the option is between Bronson Xerri and someone like Jake Averillo for a similar value, give me Jake Averillo 11 times out of 10 if Jake wants to come here and play football. Because there's a significant difference between a guy that wants to come here and play and a guy that's got questions and marks about his willingness to get out there and compete for, we're talking about 27 regular rounds a year plus another 4 games in the finals, potentially 3 or 4 games. You're talking about a guy, you need to be locked in for 2/3 of the year. So, if there are motivational issues, I'm out. I'm done. But that's on the club to do their due diligence. Maybe that could be just a bit of misinformation, being someone out there to weaken his market, how things are, player agents, clubs, all the stuff that goes on, the nefarious games that are played. I don't know. But, it's you got to think that one way or another this Xerri situation is going to reach a head soon, isn't it? Because if they keep putting him in reserve grade, he's going to want out sooner and sooner. And that'll be then on clubs to find out whether he is their guy.
John, in positive news for one of the clubs, that's the New Zealand Warriors, there had been a lot of debate about what was going to happen when Metcalf came back. And we've got the answer. Metcalf's going to play 5'8".
Which I think
he's not going to...
That was the popular theory. Tanner Boyd is the hot hand. What an interesting story Tanner Boyd is too. Former Australian schoolboy, was a highly touted prospect out of Brisbane, and then flamed out very early on in the NRL, and has worked hard and spent time as a dummy half in the utility, and is now, I think he's 26 years of age, so he's still not old by any means, finds himself a free agent in a genuine Dally M competitor. So that also speaks to Andrew Webster's systems, and he deserves some credit there, getting both Metcalf and Tanner Boyd in Dally M consideration, at least in some capacity. But yeah, Tanner Boyd.
John, I'm fairly confident. That the Eels were in negotiations to try to get him from the Titans when the Warriors managed to grab him. That that the Eels had targeted him
as probably more as a utility backup, and it took him a little bit of time.
The Dean,
the Dean Hawkins, exactly. And it took him a little bit of time last year to get his feet under him at the Warriors, and he's just hit another gear this year. And we'll have to wait and see whether it's going to be sustained for the totality of the season. But he's been awesome, and it's no surprise that Metcalf's been kicked to 5'8" to accommodate him, because Tanner is the hot hand. And the way the Warriors are playing, I know Metcalf was a Dalian frontrunner last year, but his individual brilliance was getting the Warriors home in close contests. The Boyd-led Warriors are dominating. So that's not just a one-man show. Jackson Ford's been fantastic. You got Lecca the Wrecker coming off the edge there. They got Mitch Barnett back this week, another big in. Webster's running a tight ship there. So, I think that's probably the right call. I do like Metcalf at 6. It gives him the opportunity to bring himself back into the game off that injury and pick and choose his moments while Tanner Boyd conducts the overall show. And I am very keen to see what Tanner Boyd does in the big picture. Does he end up at Perth? Is there another club that's going to chase him and spend big dollars and make him their 7? Do the Warriors invest heavily into their halves and double up on Boyd and Metcalf? They've got Harris Tavita there as well as what's his name, Tamari Martin, who's not obviously a primary playmaker, but is part of that playmaking puzzle there. Boyd might be the right man at the right time for a very handsome payday, given that the Bears have Toby Sexton but could still use a dominant half. So that's a big one to monitor coming into the business end of the season, what happens with Tanner Boyd. And
John, finally, have we got the result yet on the judiciary?
Yeah, it actually concluded before we started recording. So what the argument was there was it was an early guilty plea at the judiciary on behalf of Couchman, Ryan Couchman that is. But the judiciary were pushing for a 4-game suspension while his defence were arguing it to be a 3-game suspension. And after the conference between the officials concluded, it was a 4-game suspension, which is in line with the precedent that's been set for other hip drop spin that have been referred to the judiciary. There have either been 4 or 5 week suspensions, if I'm not mistaken. So this is consistency from the judiciary. It doesn't really make us feel any better about what happened to J'maine Hopgood, but Couchman out for a month. And look, I've got mixed feelings here, Craig, because obviously the NRL feels like they need to make a statement on this. But I think it's the wrong statement because, like you said, no team is actively coaching for a hip drop tackle. It is a mechanic brought about by the nature of the ruck, by the ball runner wanting to win post-contact meters and fall forwards while the defending team are trying to wrestle him and not give up the PCM or the offload. And then even worse, it's been exacerbated by the force fatigue being injected into the game. So I feel like Couchman...
They need to issue themselves a breach notice.
Yeah, well... Maybe they should start
bringing the game into disrepute.
Start listening to the players and the coaches, and maybe not just the players and coaches or the coaches on the rules committee. Let's actively listen to all 17 clubs now, because obviously the Eels have had some vocal. I think Jonah Pezzett and Jason Ryles have both spoken out. I know that what's his name, Dearden up at the Cowboys has been pretty vocal against the 6 against. I think there's been a few other players and coaches that have spoken out too. We are passing a point of no return when it comes to these 6 agains. So I don't want to get bogged down on it again, mate. But it's not good. Oh, and we didn't mention it in terms of the Eels news. But in our title, which is 2 injuries, a breach notice, and the derby, the Zaire Yongi breach notice handed a 1-game suspended ban for bringing the game into disrepute. What are your thoughts, mate? I mean, this is stuff from years back. It's confirmed to be his tenure at Penrith involving an ex-partner. Nothing. What was the? Were there suspended 1-game suspensions or bans given to the various players with the white powder shown in pictures and live streams in the last 18 months? I can't recall. Chat might know, because obviously in the context of his playing availability, he's now not beholden to a suspension as long as he keeps his nose clean, which is funny talking about the white substances for the other players. Is that in line with what we've seen in the other ones with the Roosters players that had the Twitch stream that had the white substance of no known origin on display? I can't remember because obviously you can't be too upset about not getting a suspension, but if it's not consistent with the other suspensions or non-suspensions, then you can be upset. Yeah, so because we had the golf trip where the Roosters took it upon themselves to ban Victor Radley.
Yeah.
That was separate of the NRL integrity unit. And Jamie, that's the issue, isn't it? Jamie saying it was just tobacco anyway. Unless proven otherwise, isn't it just tobacco? It's a substance of unknown origin, and like we're not stupid. Like we know, like, but you can't prove it. It's not what you know, it's what you can prove, right? That's the famous legal adage. And I'm sure I saw Rolly Polly in chat before. Maybe she can pipe up there. But yeah, it's justice for Bongi. Yes, well, that's the good one there for your Bongi. Yeah, I don't know. I'm glad that he's available for this week. But if it's not in line with the other punishments or non-punishments handed out, then you could be upset. So.
Yeah, John. Look, my attitude on it is that I'm ready now to just move past.
Oh
it.
Yeah. And again,
because
stop
these
taking
photos are
pictures.
Like 2 years ago.
Stop taking pictures, please. Do your stuff in your own private time. Just stop taking pictures and photos. I don't understand the need to document you doing, whether it's illicit or not. Again, it's not what you know; it's what you can prove. Just stop taking pictures. Stop it.
And here's the other bit of advice. If you think you can trust someone, think again. Because if you're in any sort of job where images of you doing something that could get you into trouble with the administrators of the game, the rule that you should follow is that you don't have any friends. Like, don't trust anybody. It's just how it is, because how often have we seen with rugby league players that photos have leaked out and
WhatsApp
they're
group
on a
chats,
night out,
videos.
mate.
Yep.
Yeah. And how often as well, they're in private. Like all of these ones, and it's been not with substances, but you know, the likes of Brett Finch and what's his name? With the bubbler.
Oh, Todd Carney. Yeah, Todd Carney.
Todd Carney, right? And then there was the Monaghan down
Joel
down
Monaghan
at
for peanut
Canberra.
butter.
Yep. Yeah. So they're with a bunch of mates larking around, some of them in people's homes, and photos being taken. And the thing is, like, you might trust those mates as they're your mates, but then they've got mates that they trust as mates. And then those mates will have mates that they trust as mates. And next thing, your photos being shared with a whole lot of people that you haven't even got a clue of who they are, and they've got no qualms it'll come to someone who's got no qualms in sending it out and getting it published somewhere. We know that's not the instance here with Isaiah, that it was the story is that it's come through relationships, but through a relationship. But nevertheless, you hope that the lesson is learned. If you're going to do something silly, don't take photos of it. Just don't, please. Anyway, we want to move past all of that. Did anyone have any? Did they find anything? Anyone in chat? Did they do any quick research?
No, a lot of people mentioning that they glad there weren't camera phones back in their day, which is a very good sentiment. Yeah. It is such a, what are we up to? Is it the alpha generation now? And even just, post millennial, the need to document yourself doing every aspect of your life is, I don't know. I'm a very technology person, Craig. Like I grew up in that sort of bridging generation between the present generation and then post boomer, post was it Gen Y, and I just don't understand. I'm also a fairly private person.
Yeah, I remember it was some sort of comedian that said, you look back at photos of your grandfather back in the day, and there's a very small number of photos, and some of them, they might look quite stern, and it's posing for photos and things like that. And, like, oh, look, I managed to find a couple of photos of my grandfather. And now it'll be like, for people in the future, it'll be like, oh, look, I've got about 2,000 selfies that my grandfather took. That's literally the change that's happened. And it's with every part of a person's life documented. And we live it as being involved in social media with what we do and video ourselves with regard to presenting the podcast or putting out opinions on social media, those sorts of things. And you and I were both encouraged to do that.
And I love videography, and I love taking photos of nature and of like cool things. I just don't feel the need to document every aspect of my life and then put it up on social media. It's
well, I guess that's one thing, is that what we're doing here, and this is not I'm not criticizing people who do like to document, but we're doing something where I guess we're trying to create content about other people or about the club we love or why we love the club or that.
But the core tying it all back together, the core thing is that this need to document all aspects of your life is leading to players like Yongi and the various other players in the past putting themselves in compromised situations. So there is a lesson to be learned there. Whether people will learn it, I don't know. That's on them. But on that note, guys, a lot of people talking about how they handle their media and a lot of common sense in chat there. Jamie, I do resonate with you there, mate. I love my tech, but yes, very much not a bleeping moron in that regard there too. Jetta saying he does videos for his website, but that is all. That sort of stuff is completely reasonable, Jetta. And I don't mind taking selfies and pictures of your friends, your mates, your family, and all that stuff. It's just the compulsive need to document every aspect of your life is what really, it feels like an episode of Black Mirror. Like we're being conditioned to give away everything about ourselves to the big tech. So that's my conspiracy theory for the day.
We got any questions from chat before we wrap up?
Joel does have one question. Joel, bring us back to the footy. You guys reckon there might be any late surprises to the named team? More your purview here, Craig, but I look at that name 19, obviously the +3 on the shadow bench, and I'm not expecting a Tiancum debut this week. I would expect it to be the name 19. The question would be maybe around Joash, but given that Kelly is a special centre, I think that we're probably going to be playing the way we're named. That would be my expectation.
I can't see any reason why it won't be.
Yeah, so unfortunately, Joel, I don't think there's going to be, obviously there could be a mishap at training or something that happens during the week that could change calculations, but it's going to be a pretty safe team list, I would expect. What else we got?
I think one of the things too, John, just to take that further, is coaches, if we're talking about players that might be making their debut, coaches would have ideas about what sort of games they want to play.
Circled ideal matchups in terms of not exposing a player to a difficult challenge in terms of both the head-to-head matchup and then the overall team composition. We've certainly seen that in the junior reps this year, haven't we? There's been some games where they've very clearly said, okay, this is the right time to bring in some roster rotation, give people a chance to come in and show what they can do. And again, there are no easy games in the NRL, but there are easier games, aren't there, Craig? And I imagine that the Eels have some games in mind for players like Araz Nanva and Tiancum Brown, but I don't think that's this week. Not against the presumptive premiership favourites. So we'll have to wait and see. Yeah. But I would expect this to be 1-19 ostensibly because there are 22 players named. We got a question from the boss Belsham. If nobody has asked, can someone explain why a utility playmaker is starting lock instead of impact ball off the bench in 2021 ball? I get the first part of it if you're talking about Dylan Walker, or you're talking about the SG ball. Can you just clarify that, boss? The 2021 part, it's throwing me out here. Because I don't know if I'm misinterpreting that, but it's 2026. Let me just open up team lists. Because the SG board did have some changes this week. We get some players back, but that's going to be saved for the junior podcast.
So if we address the question about...
I guess it's about Dylan Walker. Yeah. We did touch on this, but I'll let you have your piece on this one, Greg, before we start wrapping up.
I don't consider Dylan Walker to be a utility player anymore, because when he's been coming on, he's been specifically playing at the 13. And the 13 role is that link role. Now, if we're talking about what Jake Turbo is not doing well, he was one of the pioneering players when it came to that lock that was the link player between the forwards and the backs, almost playing as an additional half. And he's now almost completely taken out his running game. It's almost non-existent. So that's why you don't see any running meters. He is literally playing like another half, where the half is not doing any running. They're just funneling the ball out. And that's what Jake Turbo's doing. Now, if you look at Dylan Walker, he's doing the things that Manly fans would probably want Jake Turbo to do, which is he's being very football savvy. He knows when to play that link role. He knows when to tuck the ball up under his arm. He knows when to dig into the line and put someone through a hole. So he is playing a very distinct role that I wouldn't have called a utility role anymore. And maybe he could come on and play in one of those other positions if he was at 14 and we had an injury and then they have a bit of a reshuffle. But he's primarily playing that role in the middle now.
Yeah, and the boss clarified that the 2021 aspect is in relation to essentially the 6 again era. So that's what he meant. Why are we playing a utility playmaker as a starting player in the 6 again era of the game? I don't know if you'll hear earlier in the show, boss, but I did talk about this, and part of that I think is somewhat it's theory crafting from Jason Ryles. He's still chasing the ideal setup for his starting pack. We know that Dylan Walker is an absolute start off the bench, and that's where you can argue his best football is being played. And I do fall in line with you, Craig, in that I don't see him as a utility playmaker. I see him as a specialist lock forward or a middle half even. But he does have the capability to cover in the halves too when there is an injury, I suppose, crises, because Joe Ash is there too. But if we've spent 4 of our bench spots already and we need to throw someone to the halves, he could be a good fit there too. I think that the big picture is that Jason Ryles hasn't found the right starting trio for the Parramatta Eels through the middle. He's had a few different setups in the first 3 rounds, and none of them have been able to, whether it's been referee influenced or Parramatta mistakes influenced, have been able to find the right setup for us. And I think that Walker being given the chance now is maybe up tempo is what the Eels need to start. And against Penrith, you have to be up tempo for the entire game. So I can understand why he's putting Walker into the mix there. You can't just go north-south, smash mouth football against Penrith. They eat that shit up for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So I think Walker's a point of difference in our attacking structures against the might of the Penrith Panthers. And I also think that Ryles...
Penrith don't like a passing game against them, especially a short passing game. Forwards linking, that sort of thing. That puts them off their game defensively.
Yes, so and I think keeping them off balance is huge. Yeah,
in this play out.
But that's a good question, boss. I like that. It's a very legitimate discussion around the merits of starting Walker versus bringing him off the bench. I think there is a combination of matchup specificity here against the Panthers, and also just Jason Ryles still searching for the right balance in his starting pack. And look, Richard says he prefers Walker off the bench. I understand. I don't think that's an incorrect opinion to have. I think that this is just not to use my favourite term, confluence, Craig, but there's a number of circumstances that converge on round 4 that necessitate Jason Ryles maybe putting Walker into the starting mix. And if it comes out ahead of kickoff that Charlie Geimer or Luca Moretti gets to start lock forward, I wouldn't be surprised either. This could be a bit of ducks and drakes from Ryles, making Penrith think that we're zagging when we're zigging and having prepared for ball playing and whatnot in the starting 20. But who knows? But good question.
When we've had Ryles make late changes, it's generally been around either the 13 or the props.
That's true. So there is precedent there. There is precedent. Jamie says that Riley Smith has been a bit off the last few games. Hope he comes good this weekend. Yeah, I don't think you're wrong there either, Jamie. I think that there's been good passages of play from Riley. He's obviously been a terrier chasing and harassing the kickers. But we saw a really poor pass on the 5th tackle against the St. George that drew an error out. I think it was Kilmer. It was a pass on the ankles down the right edge. It was not a great pass. He has not found full gear just yet, and I'm confident he'll come good. The effort is absolutely there.
Oh, look,
There was a cracking. By the way, we didn't talk about it. There was a cracking clearing kick from Riley in that game against St. George. Nearly kicked the 40-20 at one point. It was an excellent clearing kick. So there are absolutely signs of quality in his work, but he hasn't been able to stitch it all together for whatever reason.
If you look at what Riley's game is based on, his game is based on high effort levels. And probably when they do those what do you call them? Where they get they get all the data into the receiver in their jerseys.
The GPS tracker.
The GPS tracker. I was trying to think. The GPS tracker would not come into my head, but the GPS trackers also monitor not just the amount that you're doing, but the level of your intensity as well. Whether that you're running at 80% of capacity or 90% of your best, whatever, it can produce those sorts of figures as well. Riley's he does so many 1% moments that I think sometimes get overlooked. On Sunday, he was the man chasing out for the kickers to put the pressure on. And that didn't stop throughout the game. He kept that up all the way through the game. Whereas Talon De Silva produced around 20 minutes of incredible football, just turning the attack on for the Eels. Riley Smith did 60 minutes out there, and whereas Talon, I think, made less than 10 tackles, Riley Smith had to make 50. So it was a different sort of workload. Talon came on at a time when the Eels were on top in attack, and Riley's had to do a lot of the ugly stuff that was out there. What I would say, where I would agree, is that he's probably thrown some passes that he's really not happy with this year. Like, it hasn't quite been as consistent as it was last year. However, in terms of the output, there is no one in that team who chases like he chases, who puts pressure on, who's there to clean up football that's gone loose. He was the one that chased back for that chip kick over the top late in the game. Why? Because you could see he was reading the play and knew that was coming. He was the one against the Broncos that chased through on that kick. He had probably his worst game in blue and gold colours against the Storm. And you know what? He had 16 other mates had their worst game against the Storm. So, I think I'm not going to judge Riley harshly in any way, shape or form, because I think the positive side of the ledger is still well and truly above any negatives that I could find for him. And I think Jason Ryles has probably got that dual role that he can now play with his dummy halves, with one that's going to be that workaholic and the other one that's going to be able to be set loose when there's a bit of fatigue in the opposition. So any other questions there, John?
Chris Ricketts has proposed a foot race between you, me, and Jake Trbojevic to see who's the quickest. I was just saying to him in chat that if you give me a couple of months to make sure I can shape up and not blow out either Achilles, I might be able to cover Jake. Despite the spare tire these days, I was actually pretty quick back in my days as a footy player. But
I think Chris is angling for me to be no longer part of TCT or this earth.
Just going to slide on into the co-host role. we do have a great chat with between myself, Craig, and Chris that's going to come out in the coming weeks. Just got to get through some editing on that, where we just talk Parramatta. It was really fun. So
we've still got one final bit of recording.
Oh, we actually, yeah, I forgot about that, Chris. You hit us up when you got to finish it off, because we had a comical conclusion to the recording session where I had the waterboard turn up. Chris had to get out to dinner, and I was sort of just like, doing the John Travolta in what's it called? What's the Pulp Fiction? We're just looking around like, okay, I guess I'm here by myself.
Yep.
But yeah, what do we got here? This has been pretty fun. The freeform questions from chat at the end here. Jamie's right. Forty's haircut is aerodynamic, built for speed. Yes, sir. I got the
Who's the wrestler again, John?
Kevin Owens. Yeah, there's a few people in chat that like to equate the big fella here with Kevin Owens, and honestly, it's not the worst equivalence, to be fair. Chris is backing off. He's saying 60s is a treasure that must be preserved. Yeah, we'll get AI 60s before the big fella wraps
Won't
up.
be preserved with a match race against
but yeah, we got a massive game against Penrith on Saturday, ladies and gents, and we're obviously going to be covering that in the preview. In the preview podcast, alongside the junior reps who have an unfortunately conflicting schedule, but we will be previewing them, of course, too. What else we got in this week, Craig? It's junior reps preview, NRL preview. We've obviously going to have the instant reaction on Saturday. We've got we just had goals grades go up. That was a fun read. He got to rip in positively to the Dragons post-mortem. I saw A's for Talon De Silva and big Sam Tuivasa, which is very warranted. I think Bowie Simonson got an A- too, so goal was feeling very positive, understandably so. Good read there. I always love goals grades content. It's fantastic. What else we got this week? Going to get from the stands up from Shelley at some point, I hope.
Oh well, I think Chris might be working on something for us for off the Cumberland fence. We'll have a usual article from Roly Poly and Supercoach Adrian, who absolutely nails those columns.
I might need him to help me this week, mate.
If people want to truly understand some of the ins and outs of how you play Supercoach and decisions made around players, do not miss reading what he's producing. It's we're so pleased to have Roly Poly and Adrian on board. John, you missed meeting Adrian on Sunday.
No, yeah, I met Roly Poly the week before.
Yeah, so he met Roly Poly the week before, but Adrian came up and introduced himself as I was packing up a few things after the appearance in the club on Sunday. But yeah, look, there's plenty going on, and because it's that not as short as a Thursday turnaround, but we've got a lot to pack in between now and Saturday. So I might have to talk to you about doing a recording tomorrow morning for the junior reps preview.
Yeah, for sure. So that could be coming out earlier in the week than usual then. But yeah, I hate to bring injuries in the fantasy, but I got, of course, being a good Parramatta boy, I had J'maine Hopgood in my team. So I've got to replace J'maine Hopgood. I've got to replace Lazardi from the Storm. Why has Toby Couchman got a red X next to him this week? Trey Mooney's got a suspend. Oh my God, it's a disaster for my NRL fantasy team. I've got suspensions and injuries out the wazoo, so might have to hit up Adrian for some tips. Even though it's a different competition, I might have to find out who's the trending middle forwards right now, because I'm getting it at the back end right now. Whew. And on that note,
well, I think that's it. If there's no more questions,
we got a pizza update. We got a pizza update. Ben says, Ken confirmed the pizza was good. Garlic bread was exceptionally good, and the 8 beers prior was sensational. Glad you got a good feed. Full belly, good pizza, cold beer. That's a good night right there.
And what was the name of the pizza place again?
Yeah, it's Ben's gonna have to prompt us in this one. I do know what it is, but got to team up for the shout out here. But
come on, Ben.
He's got his garlic bread. Sure, he can put the lay up here for us. Pizza hands ready for his favourite joint in can we use joint given what happened to Zarionghi? His favourite pizza restaurant in Port Macquarie.
At Port Macquarie.
What do we got here? We've got people in. Chris is saying Lazardi's a hold. Yeah, it's too late to get into Joe Chan there as well. I think for Chris. So I'll have to find a way out, and we're still waiting for the layup from Ben. I'll give him another 10 seconds, and then otherwise I'll throw it to you for the sponsor shout out. Oh, we're even generating some business. Peter's saying what time they're open to. I'm driving down from Coolangatta. We are literally generating business for Pizza Obsession in Port Macquarie. So, look, we've gotten the garlic bread today. and surely there's a sponsorship to follow. Yeah, Pizza Obsession, Ben.
Yeah.
Good business there, mate. I'm glad you had a great feed there. It's a great spot, Port Macquarie. I love the Mid-North Coast. Like I said, Coffs Harbour boy growing up, and Armidale, Dorrigo, Port Macquarie, less so Grafton. I'm sorry, Grafton, you're not quite as nice as the other spots there. Bellingen, they're all fantastic spots there. So I'm
pretty sure that Mum's cousin and his wife, Gary and Marilyn, they've been wonderful visiting Mum in the hospital like 3 times a week. I'm pretty sure they're at Port Macquarie tonight.
You might have to get on the phone. Pizza Obsession, best pizza on the Mid-North Coast. So
yeah, absolutely.
No, that was a fun little side quest there, Ben. Thanks for that one there. Fighting the good fight there, Ben. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been an awesome live stream. We've been going for nearly 2 hours, by the way. Care of that great set of questions at the end there. Shout out to the boss there who had the good discussion about Dylan Walker's involvement in the starting team. BGA Army podcast, good to see you, mate. Got here just in time for the wrap up, so good to have you in still there. Jed is saying, bet you can
I've been sent a screenshot about the After Dark column. No analysis, no intelligent conversation, just bias and hatred for other teams.
Oh, God. Unhinged, maybe.
TCT After Dark.
Jetta says...
We really have to have, that thing that you have with the internet now, where you have to provide a screenshot of your face to be able to read it. Marked as sensitive content.
Jetta saying, I bet you can make a mean pizza 40 with your Italian blood. Used to have a wood-fired pizza oven with the old man. Dad's Sicilian, so we did pizza and scacciata. People obviously think about calzone, the wrapped over pizza with the sauce, but scacciata has got pork mince, veggies, and a few other things in there, and it's a really good. It's almost like a pie with no gravy. It was a banger meal too. So yeah, we did a reasonable pizza. Used to have the big pizza parties for the birthday back in Coffs Harbour. Shout out to all the friends that came over for the 2-day birthday parties back then. But yeah, it's
John. I'm going to wrap things up because I'm at 2%.
Yeah, a good place to wrap up. So thanks everyone for tuning in. Awesome live stream. You guys are amazing. It's always great just to shoot the shit.
Yeah, I've had a lot of fun tonight.
Yes,
John. It's been
that tees us up for a
big
send off, mate. I'll hand it over to you. Take us home.
Yeah, look, again, thank you to everyone that's tuned in tonight. Chat often makes all the fun for us, and it can drive some of the content, some of the laughs that we have, as you've seen tonight. Hope you've all enjoyed it, especially if you're maybe someone that's here for the first time. We've been finding that we've been getting a lot of new followers lately, especially through Facebook. So again, thank you for tuning in. Again, as well, let's bring home another win this week, because we're Para proud. As I always say, go you mighty Eels.